All right, well, welcome. Like Ito said, welcome to our panel. This is about urban farmers on success, policy, and storytelling. So we have a couple of my favorite urban farmers here with us today to share some information about their stories, their farms. We're hopefully waiting for another farmer to be able to hop on and join us. But in the meantime, I'll give the agenda, a little bit of information about CAF and my work with urban agriculture, and then we'll move into learning more about our panelists. And we'll have lots of time at the end for questions. So please don't be afraid to put them into the chat or hold on to them, and we'll get to them at the end. So we will, like I said, do some introductions, but we're also going to talk a little bit about how geography really impacts what urban agriculture is for each of us. California is obviously a very large and very diverse state. So the challenges that we have as urban growers really do reflect the place that we are growing our food in. As well as access to markets and things like that are very different and unique throughout the state. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the realities of each of these places that our growers are in and how it impacts the start of their operations, what policy and zoning does to what hurdles might present themselves with that, and what our farmers have done to be successful in navigating some of those areas. We're going to do a little bit of storytelling, a little bit of impact on the regions and the communities that our growers are in. And then we'll do a little bit of a lightning round. I've got a few questions for our farmers, and then we'll have Q&A. So you've all very likely heard of Community Alliance with Family Farmers. And so I'm Keely Cervantes. I am the Policy and Organizing Manager at CAF. I've been here for about 2 years, and we have been doing some really fun urban agriculture work. So Stephanie and Mo are actually both part of our Farm Service Agency cooperative agreement that we have had for the last few years at CAF. We're actually wrapping that up in the next couple of months. But the biggest part of that has been doing microgrants to growers in the LA and Bay areas. So each of their farms received funding in 2024 to do projects, expansion, things like that. So I'll have them talk a little bit more about that as well. And then now we're currently running a California Department of Food and Agriculture urban agriculture program. So we're doing some microgrants throughout the state, but focusing on Sacramento, the Inland Empire, Fresno areas. And we just launched our final microgrant round. So we are going to be doling out a lot of money to growers throughout the state. So we're really excited about that. And Mo is actually also part of our Urban Agriculture Advisory Committee that is part of our urban agriculture work through CDFA. So that's another piece of some of the policy work that Mo is connected to at CAF. So a little bit about me before we get into the growers. So like I said, I'm the Policy and Organizing Manager. So I do our urban ag programs, but I also do our federal policy and some of our coalition building, some of our work with healthy soils. So I get to work with a lot of different people at CAF, which is really fun, and use a lot of my experience to inform my work. So part of that for me is being a former urban farmer myself. So this is my my rooftop farm that I had in Brooklyn, New York. We grew hops and microgreens and flowers and a lot of fun things like that on this very strange former pharmaceutical factory building. So I did that for a few years. And like I said, that information and experience does really inform my work at CAF. So next up, we have Stephanie. I'm going to pass it over to you. And so I've got your bio here, Steph, and then I've got the next slide, a couple photos of your space before and after, the one that I have been to. So give you a few minutes to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about Shift Our Ways Collective.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Keely, for having me. Excuse me, all. Good morning as well, or almost afternoon. I'm Stephanie, one of the co-founders with Shift Our Ways Collective. And yes, we were one of the grantees for CAF, which helped us to get our hens at our Reseda location. So we have a chicken coop and four lovely ladies who have now brought in almost 100 eggs. So this was their first year with producing eggs, and starting in February, we got them in September. But a little bit about myself, as I used to be a former educator, a US history teacher for eighth graders. I found my love in the garden as a young child and reinvigorated it once again once I started leading the garden program at my school. And then right before leaving the classroom, or I should say right after leaving the classroom, I started getting into planting trees in South Los Angeles. And that is where I met my now co founders, Haley and Madison. So together we grew Shift Our Ways Collective. We're urban farmers. We're based out of Los Angeles County in a section called San Fernando Valley. And right now we operate in two spaces, which is Arleta and Reseda Farm. We are a nonprofit, so we're focused on helping our communities grow their own edible gardens and really highlighting that you can grow in small spaces and still have really delicious local organic food. Yes, and then here is our farms. I also have it behind me. This is where we started. It's 5,000 square feet in total, but we grow on about 3,000 square feet.
Sorry,
And
go ahead. Sorry about that.
all good. We're also a compost co-op. So we do make sure that our soil is healthy through our food scraps, and it's a community composting site. So the community gets to come and drop off their food scraps. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about and looking forward to sharing more.
All right, thank you so much. The next slide here is about Christian. And so he was to be one of our panelists as well. And he's down here in San Diego, close to where I live. And this is him and his wife, Alyssa, who are lovely people, and they're in Bonita, California. They've got a couple of different urban ag sites. And yeah, we have. Oh, Christian's here. Where's Christian? Can we? I see you. Hilo, can we get Christian to be um one of our spotlights?
Yes, one moment,
Okay.
please.
You know what? While you work on that, I'll throw it over to Mo here and we'll go back.
Nice.
Go for it, Mo.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Excited to hear from Christian as well. So I am surprise, surprise in Berkeley. But exciting news is that we just got a yard in North Oakland as well. So we are slowly making our way throughout the East Bay. So my journey with farming, I'll make it very brief, started at UC Santa Cruz through the CASVIS program. And that's where I learned about different models of how to farm in general. And so the CSA model really appealed to me just because it was a way for in which people could really get to know their farmer and feel invested in the work that farmers were doing. And so, coincidentally, Berkeley Basket started many moons ago with former Vice Mayor Sophie Hahn and Willow Rosenthal of City Slicker fame. They were able to create Berkeley Basket as a demonstration garden. So it was one backyard, one farmer, seven households receiving the produce. And it was just a way to inspire people in Berkeley to basically farm their backyard. And now, many years later, we are in four backyards and then starting a partnership with Giltrack Farms as well. So we'll be farming close to an acre of space in the city of Berkeley, which is really exciting to say out loud. And so some of the pictures you see here, this is actually from one of our biggest yards, which is actually a half a block from where I live. There's my former co-conspirator, best friend, Farmer Mariana. This is when we had just built the beds, and it was all through the spirit of community that we were able to build this yard out during the height of 2020. And so now on to the right here, this is the most recent picture that I took last season. It's virtually in full production. And we have calculated that with each yard, we can feed between 7 to 9 households. So you can imagine with 4 households, or excuse me, with 4 backyards, we're getting close to feeding 36 households, which probably is somewhere between 50 to 75 people, depending on the household, which is small numbers, but we like to think of ourselves as small but mighty. Um, and we want to keep continuing. So I'll stop there.
That is amazing. All right, I'm gonna move it back to
All right, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes,
All right,
hello.
beautiful. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm actually on the farm today, and we have our
I
farm,
figured.
and so no worries. I brought the laptop here, and nonetheless, yeah. So my name is Christian, and my wife's name is Alyssa, and we run Ranchito Milky Way Farm Stand here in Bonita, San Diego, California. The big goal is to connect people to where their food comes from, right? Like all of us. Uh, like the panelists before me, we started during the pandemic, and yeah, it's been just a crazy experience. We lease land. We have built a few relationships where people land is hard to find, right? But we're really big fans of Joel Salatin and kind of the approach of if you're in a position where you can't afford land, you can lease it. And so we've through relationship building have found we're going on I think now we have 2 current operating plots that are about a quarter acre. We have one in Bonita, one in La Mesa, and 2 more that are coming online hopefully this next year. And yeah, just connecting people. We have our farm stand here every Sunday. We get people to come here, pick their produce, kind of like a little farmers market style, see the farm, connect with their farmers. And yeah, it's been a big goal of ours to just, have a face to where your food comes from, right? It's really important. Call it? Alyssa and I didn't particularly think we were going to become farmers when we were younger, and so now that we're here, it's just been a just amazing experience being able to see from young people to older people trying to just have autonomy over where their food comes from and good food getting into their bodies. So yeah, it's a very interesting experience doing this, right? But yeah, I'm grateful for all of you guys to
Yeah. Thank you so much, Christian. Yeah, I mean, I grew up on a farm and I still didn't think I was gonna be a farmer when I grew up, so I get that. And yeah, this photo here has the one on the right has a little bit of the farm stand that is behind Christian there in the video, and I've been there a couple of times. And my daughter was like rolling around with one of the farm cats the last time we were there. She was so happy. So
Yeah,
yeah,
everybody asks us that
well,
if we have farm animals, and that's the
yeah,
only farm animals we currently have right now. So,
that's the way to do it. All right. Well, thank you all for your intros. And so this next part, I want to, take one at a time and talk a little bit about some of the specifics about the geography, the region, the area. And so this will sort of go a little bit into, so I've got this slide, but then also the next one. So some of these unique scale and cost and climate issues that we kind of all face. So I'll leave it on this first slide, but would love for you all to kind of incorporate a little bit about the specifics of where you're located in your urban areas. Like, what does the landscape kind of look like? What is your soil like? Are you only doing raised beds? Things like that. What do you think makes your farm unique? And then what is, kind of either one unexpected challenge when you were getting started, or something that is kind of a big theme of a challenge that you deal with usually? So Stephanie, we will start with you.
Awesome. Well, I feel like I also just want to go visit Milky Way, Ranchito. Like, okay, let's put that out there. We'll have to make a visit. So we are, as mentioned, located in the San Fernando Valley. We operate out of two sites and we practice regenerative agriculture. That's our big focus. And our soil is what do we say? We say it's native soil. We actually filled up our cars with the soil in like a local residential area to make sure it was native soil before we added any other outside sources as we were building, because you can see there was a lot of Bermuda grass. So we did do the whole lasagna mulch method to really reestablish and reinvigorate that healthy soil that was going to be ready for producing and growing food. So we are operating also as like community hubs. So we provide food access and learning resources. As a nonprofit, we're open 4 days a week: Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We split 2 days per site, and about any given time throughout the month, we're open between 56 to about 80 hours monthly. And we have a team of 10. So it's two of us who are full time, myself and our other co founder, Madison. We have our wonderful fellowship coordinator. That's one of our really big programs that helps us get funding. So that's with Anna Karen. We have a programs manager, Nicholas. Maggie's our farm manager. Woo woo, shout out Maggie. Our fellows, we introduced Kiana. She handles like data, which helps us with like harvest tracking. Ross helps us with our social media and really making sure we're helping with the storytelling, which I know we get into later. Chandani is a partner in crime with Maggie in the education. And then we have Julie, who really helps with that outreach and getting our story out there and community tabling. So I would say what makes our space unique is we get to plant all year round, Mediterranean, hot summer climate. We have very dry summers, though, however, but we do have like perennials and all year round production. We do plant seasonally, so everything that we plant, we make sure it's seasonal crops. One unexpected challenge that I was like, which challenge do I want to talk about? But I want to go into the zoning, and it's that urban agriculture incentive zone uh, ordinance. So basically, the way that we have to apply for being an agriculture space has been very difficult for us. We're still in that process. So that's one thing I wanted to highlight. Yeah, and just throwing out that there are 121 urban farms across LA County, which at first I was like, wow, that sounds like a lot, but maybe we could do more based on the space. So that's kind of where we're at. So just to make it clear, like the water access with the Los Angeles Department of Water has been a challenge for us, and zoning it so that we don't pay as much as a residential rate, because we do drip irrigation, and we make sure that we have drought tolerant plants and that we also mulch so we're retaining water.
Awesome. That is very interesting. If you all have follow-up questions about that, put them in the chat and maybe we'll get into that a little bit. So Christian, I'm going to have you take it away next.
Solid. Thank you. So yes, we are located here in San Diego, California. We again are now in our 5th year, and there's a lot of things we've learned in that amount of time. We're still learning, right? With that being said, how we farm, regenerative, right? We try to do that as much as possible. I think as I've gotten older, and feel like I tell this to my sisters and some of the younger people that we have working here, is like you know there's trade-offs, right? Is one of the things I say in life, right? And so one of the things being very dogmatic, I feel like, is that you close yourself off to other things. And so I've learned to try to be, as much of an open mind as possible. With that being said, we started no-till, right? And then now we're kind of like minimal till. So we definitely are regenerative in the sense that we try to add more than we take, right? That's a big thing with our soil here. We're definitely soil-driven. But, when we're using our seeder, we need to be able to have some decent fluffy soil. So we tilth. We definitely try to find a balance in everything. How we farm, I would say we are a profitable business, right? So we are trying to make money doing this, right? All of us are in many fashions trying to make money doing this, right? But the idea is I want this to be a business that I can build so that I can afford to live here in San Diego. And going on year 4, year 5 now, right? We're getting closer and closer. At the beginning, we didn't know really what we were expecting, right? We knew that we had a vision and a goal, and little by little, we've gotten better at that. And with that being said, we have also applied for a few grants and have gotten lucky and fortunate, including one with the pollinator program with San Diego Food System Alliance, and that kind of helped set a path, building a business plan to, this business needs to be, in our context, $1 million business, right? So how do we do that, and how do we scale? How do we become efficient? How do we have, SOPs? All that stuff is definitely something we're working on, and how we farm, and we try to have fun. I think the motto, right, work hard and play hard, is something we try to stand by and build in our value of our company. And so we're really trying to do that. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that were said, Stephanie, right? We one of our plots as well, Bermuda, just trying to deal with the clay soil that we have here in California, particularly in San Diego too. Water, we've been fortunate where we don't have access to a well, but luckily that the water is expensive, but just above that line where it still makes business sense for us to be able to continue farming. So we're lucky for that. Yeah, what makes our farm unique? I mean, there's a lot of farm stands, right? Even here in San Diego, there's several. But the idea of being able, again, to see your farmers every Sunday, be able to interact with that space and have those questions, and be able to, whether take a quick tour of the farm or ask me about our homemade soap that we use as our pesticide. I think more and more people are, I make the example when I'm talking to our customers here. Everybody is, political, or whether you're, ideologue, or whatever it is, everybody can agree on this one basic thing. We just want good food, right? No BS in our food, right? And so I think that's something that is a space here, where people can come and interact with that. And so that makes us, I feel like pretty unique in the sense that, you don't get that at the grocery store. You don't get to, as much as the cashier person is amazing, and we need all those people. You don't really get to ask those questions. It's just not what is going on with them, right? And so I would say that definitely makes our farm unique. An unexpected challenge. I mean, there's like that saying too, right? You build it and they will come. Well, they don't always come, right? So you gotta wear a lot of hats. You gotta be a marketer. You gotta do, events coordinator. All these things that, being a small, lean farm, right, is you can't just make only money growing vegetables, right? Especially when, in our case, we first started with a quarter-acre plot. So, we do events as well here too. We, working on, we had a painting date for Valentine's Day, right? And we make a delicious meal with them. So we have like these little things strings that we're pulling to generate income here. And yeah, so I would say the unexpected challenge is how many hats you have to wear, right? But it's fun. It's nothing worth doing in life is easy, right? And so we're definitely trying to build that bridge for people to feel like they can do this for a living if they, are creative, if they can, find the right ways to do it, and don't break too much of your values, but find a way to grow as well. And I would say that's an unexpected challenge example. So, in a nutshell.
Thank you. Mo, you're up.
Thanks, everyone. I feel just like resonating with a lot that has already been said. Um, so I farm in Berkeley. I would say our climate here is pretty mild, especially because I'm really close to the water. And also, you could theoretically farm all year round, but I like to give myself a break. So I'm not farming all year round, but we do practice organic, sustainable practices. So, like right now, I'm chopping down a lot of our cover crop. I have a mix between raised beds and in-ground beds. We focus mostly on raised beds though, because we have had our soil tested and there is lead in the soil. And so we unfortunately did have to ship in soil from a place up in Richmond, California, but they're a great place. And we were able to also get a blend of soil that speaks to our values. So it's like, there's earthworm castings in it, there's different things in the soil that help our plants grow. And then we also do compost application. I'm so grateful that where I live, we try to make it a closed loop. So we have our own composting station here. All of our green waste, our food scraps, At one point, we did have chickens here. Chicken manure was all going into the compost, and then that compost was being used in our beds. And then we also use the municipal compost that comes from the city of Berkeley. We use their wood chips. But then we also understand that with the municipal compost, we do sometimes add dry fertilizer into the soil as well to just add a more blended, complex blend, because you can't control what goes into the city compost, and sometimes it could be hydrophobic. So we also are low till, so everything is hand tilled. We don't have a BCS. Obviously, we can't get a tractor back here. That would be a sight to see. And so, and I would say that also speaks to the challenge of um, we have, and I should say we, because it has been a community effort. It's not just me. The scaling up is the issue, right? It's because I am parceled across different backyards. And so that means um, I would love to participate in biking everywhere, but also if I'm having to schlep, you know, plants on plants to different backyards, like sometimes biking is just not an option. Right? And so you're also contributing to admissions because you have to get in your car and drive what should just be a couple blocks just to work in a yard, right? And so um, you could decentralize that by putting a greenhouse at every yard, but you still also have to make sure that you're automating your systems so that way you're watering there's just different things you have to think about, right? Um, and also just the soil. You have to, like, we were not surprised, but it was a bummer to hear that we had lead in the soil. And so we are remediating the soil. However, we can't plant into it the way that we would like to. So then that's an added cost of having to bring in raised beds. Um, but I would not trade this work for the world. We are a mixed veg, annual veg, flower, herb operation with access to fruit trees. And so we're trying to provide a really dynamic CSA box to people. And then by also too, like another challenge is I'm in the Bay Area, the East Bay, and there are so many different people doing this work. So it's like my favorite question is why do people want to buy kale from me where they could buy kale from anyone, right? And so that does play into the storytelling. Like what are they also getting in addition to their CSA box. So it's like partnering with farmers, partnering with agroecology commons to be a part of their apprenticeship program. So you're contributing to the next round of farmers. You by being a part of Berkeley Basket, you're allowing kids to come to the farm to be with us for a day to pick kiwis and plant up ranunculus corms. There's so many different that plays to the wearing of lots of hats. I'm not just a farmer, I'm also an educator, I'm also a mentor. And so it really is the storytelling piece. Why do people want to buy kale from Berkeley Basket CSA when they could buy kale from Berkeley Bowl or they could buy kale from another farm, right? Um, and then also the zoning too, like just very quickly to what Stephanie was sharing, trying to get ag rates for water. How do you tell someone that you're a farm and we're in the middle of Berkeley, the city of Berkeley, really having to advocate for how, like, what urban farming looks like. It's not just on a acre of land in Sunol Ag Park or something, it's like residential. And so then you're having to advocate for yourself. And then so how does that play into, well, I am a farm. I want to get ag rates for my water, or I want to get zoning permits that for ag. So we could talk more about that later.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have you keep pulling this thread a little bit with this
Okay.
next slide of how like Berkeley is, that issue you're talking about does like shape your operation. Like how has it maybe changed what you envisioned it to be in the first place versus what it is now? What trade-offs have you had to make? And then the next piece we'll talk a little bit more about the zoning and local policy because I'm really interested in getting a little bit, more information from all of you on that. So let's have you just kind of continue what you were saying with a little bit of focus on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So Berkeley Basket started in 2008, 2009 out of zoning, the zoning ordinance. So former Vice Mayor Sophie Hahn, she went in and with some advocating rezoned, had the code redone so that Berkeley could allow for people to sell produce out of their backyards. And this is produce that is not specifically, so it was like fruit, vegetables, nuts, honey, herbs, things that weren't processed or value added, right? And
Mm.
so Berkeley Basket was the demonstration garden for that. And so when I came on in 2019, it was just like, how do we keep um, inspiring people to want to farm their backyard? Because I think also what is attention is housing. So if there's a blank lot that I want to advocate for to put a Berkeley Basket yard there, there is the issue of, well, we could also just put a affordable housing unit there. Um, and so I think that continuing to advocate for code shifts, I know they just updated the code, which I'll add this into the resources. In 2021, the code has also continued to shift the urban ag zoning ordinance. Um, and so we are trying to adopt a lot of what was changed into our business. I should also say we are also a LLC. So we're trying to find ways to continue to ground ourselves and what it means to be connected to a community while also trying to keep a roof over my head. Rent's the most expensive thing I have to pay every month. And so, trying to sell vegetables to pay my rent every month is what I want to be doing, but it is still a process, right? It is still something I'm trying to figure out how to do, even all these years later. I'm saying I am getting closer to being what I would think is successful. But that's also kind of the trade-off for me in my personal is that I could have done something else in this world, but feeding people really is what feeds my spirit. And so I will continue to figure out a way to replicate this or write this down for the next generation of farmers. Um, and so also climate wise, I think I would say we're really lucky up here. I think season by season, it kind of trades off. There are some years where I think last year was like the coldest summer on record. So, people love tomatoes. Our tomatoes were just late. And then, previous years we had the atmospheric rivers that came in. And also the soil was so wet to work that people, we had to wait for the dry down. And so a lot of people started their seasons late. So that's extra time where money isn't being made.
Mhm.
And so people had to get creative about how they brought money in. And so again, we had to delay our season too. I think we started at like beginning of May. Um, so I
Would
won't,
you would you say that climate like related things like that has made you like be more proactive to find other funding sources for your farm because
Mhm, mhm,
growing food isn't going to be as like profitable when you are delayed like that. And so is
mhm.
has that triggered any of like you're looking for grant options or other things like has climate impacted how you think about like your annual, revenue
Mm.
stream?
Yes, in that specifically with 2020 when the fires and the air quality was really bad up here was when we started to beginning to think about how we could support ourselves when we couldn't work or couldn't harvest.
Mhm.
And then like the larger question of how do we continue to be proactive? Um, and so the beginning was we put into our CSA contracts that with people who pick up our baskets that we are allowed a certain amount of non-harvestable days,
Mhm.
that you would still pay for the basket even if we weren't able to harvest that week if the air quality was in the purple range.
Sure.
And then as far as different income streams, I do diversify, and so beyond the CSA, there are grants that we are have been awarded, or we also look to like things like CSP and EQUIP. And also, Agroecology Commons is totally an incredible organization. If you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. Um, we are a part of the apprenticeship program. And so they pay the farmer and they pay the apprentices to be an apprentice. And so that again, it speaks to my need, my desire to be an educator and a mentor, to have these young folks come out. And by young, I mean like a young farmer, not an age, um, to connect with farming in a way that they probably couldn't go out into rural areas. And so, but that does bring income in as well for us. So yeah, we've definitely had to figure out how to diversify in the event that climate prevents us from starting our season on time.
Right. Right, Christian, I'm gonna have you take this next.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, there was a lot of similarities with what Mo was saying. So, um, so the city layout affect our operation. I would say, yeah, urban areas are a little bit, hard to find places. We are lucky in the sense that here in the Bonita area, of San Diego, it's mostly horse farms and horse ranches. So there's still like a little bit of that, I would say, lifestyle here. And so, there's still bigger properties than your traditional, like small, I don't know, backyard, right? And so we've been lucky in that regard, but there's not that many. And just like what Mo was saying about the housing, right, situation, right? People will just you can make more money, right? And that's a value thing, right? And how we, you know, encourage our communities to think about this. I say this as like, I don't know, I say this kind of serious actually, where it's like if you're going to build a new community, a sprawling community, right? Like, why isn't there a urban farm or some type of farm? You're going to build a grocery store, you're going to build a school. Why aren't you building, a food network there, right? I understand it's a lot more complex than that, but nonetheless, you gotta dream, right? So, how does the city affect our operation? Well, there's not too many plots, right? So we definitely are almost word of mouth. People will come, they'll be like, "Hey, I got this small space." Another guy came to me recently who bought some land in Bonita. It's like about 14 acres, man, one of the last big properties. I think it could be a cool situation, and so kind of that. Our reputation and then word of mouth kind of helps, get that ball rolling. But it is tough sometimes, especially when you're starting out, right? And you don't have those relationships built. You're almost you gotta for Facebook, on Groupon. I'm not Groupon, OfferUp, excuse me, and you're just like putting it out there as much as possible, right? Trying to find the right place for you. So that is definitely that. The water, ag rate, all that stuff. We don't have that. There's no ag rate for us. I think there's a corporate rate or something like that, but it's not super significant. So those are things that, I hope to be in a position where, we can advocate for small farmers, our community, and be able to, inspire people to want to change that and think about that a little bit more. That's still to be, a future plan. But yeah, what trade-offs have you made? Well, I mean, there's a lot more farmer-friendly states, right? And even areas, within California, right? You can go to a place where there's farms. And so I think the trade-off is we can be closer to a larger population and in some ways affect change a little bit more quickly or at a larger scale. It's just a matter of, making sure we can find the land and do it, profitably. And so, if you want to be able to make a change in the first place, right? And so that's kind of something that we've been doing our best to, and little by little finding success. But yeah, it is a trade-off. I could move somewhere else and buy, 200 acres of land with maybe a river going through it, et cetera, et cetera. But I really find these interactions valuable, and I hope that if there's more people seeing this, that can slowly get the ball rolling, and next thing you know, snowball effect, right? That's something that I hope, and like you said, it feeds the soul, right? I think it feeds my soul, and so maybe I'm not going to be rich in that way, but I will be rich inside, right? So there's definitely that aspect as well of career trade-off, right? Um, and Yeah, how does climate influence our crops and seasons? Well, we just got like a pretty decent amount of rain for us San Diegans. And so, but the thing here is it's such a, I would say we're fortunate. Most for the most part, right? Yeah, we get our own dry spells, and when things are really dry and then all of a sudden get really wet, it can be complicated, right? But for the most part, since we're not dealing with any hurricanes or tornadoes, we're pretty intact here. I'm very grateful. I wish it rained a little bit more, and if I could pick my dates, when it would rain, that definitely would be helpful. But for the most part, we're okay. We've had a couple fire, situations here, right? California, earthquakes and fires are the big one, passed close by us, but we've been very lucky that nothing has come and swept our farm away. That's why, in some ways the having multiple plot situation is actually almost a really cool thing, right? You kind of diversify your risks, right? Or you stratify them over multiple plots. So including, pests, it is a lot harder logistically, but for sure, climate and pests that come with the climate, you can disperse them over different areas. And yeah, no, I would say second that as well with the grants, having the grants and certain situations, right? Like a couple years ago, we experienced some crazy rains and we weren't prepared for them and they, affected us. And so we were able to, have a little cushion in our pocket for a couple grants that helped us, with that issue. So for sure, climate, we're fortunate, but it can be crazy. Mother Nature is crazy sometimes. And we've just overall been, I would say, net fortunate. So yeah.
Want to go back to the thing you were saying about, yeah, you could buy a bunch of land somewhere else and it'd be a lot cheaper. But what about growing in your community where you have your roots, like where your family is and things like that? What about that does give you some like gratification for putting up with some of the more expensive and larger like land issues that you might have? Like, what is, if I'm thinking of a trade-off, like what is the community aspect for you and Alyssa to be able to grow where you are currently?
Yeah, well, I mean, just relationships, right? I mean, I think for a lot of us, if we've ever been offered an opportunity or, have had friends and family members, they get offered a job, but it's out of state, right? And you got to move. That's always the craziest thing, right? Because you have built relationships, community. And it's like, people say those words, but what does that mean? It's like it takes time. And when you invest all that time, when you have whether like we're having a equinox party here, hopefully next month, right? And you just hear people, their stories, all these things that literally take time, right? And pulls on your heartstrings, and you build friendships and all that stuff. Like it becomes a concrete block that just gets heavier and heavier and harder to for actually like move it, right? And to
Mhm.
the point where it's nearly impossible to actually pick that up and transfer it to somewhere else. And it's not to say that we couldn't, make a new community, but it's just so much more difficult, right? And so, and I think about it, and from that sense to like, every little thing that we've worked in the soil to the organisms, right? To all that stuff is just everything becomes a lot harder once you've sunk it in. And it sounds ridiculous, maybe what I'm about to say, but I've peed so much in the soil, I've contributed so much. I put so much compost and mulch and everything, and it's like I have this connection with this land, right? That I've built over time over the last 5 years. We lived here, my Alyssa got bit by a rattlesnake here, right? We've survived here. It's so much that you've put into this where it becomes harder to leave and want to leave, and you feel like it's almost like a battle that you're willing to die on this hill to just see it to the end, right? And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but it's we want to have a family, we want to build this, and so I'm hoping that this can be the spot that we do it. I have my family that lives here too, my mom, my sisters, my uncles, my aunts, and stuff. So, we're very tight, Hispanic family. And so, we're just trying to make it happen. And so, yeah, it becomes really difficult when you've done all that stuff, right? I'm sure like many of the other panelists here too, right? So it's yeah, that's kind of the weight analogy, I would say is a pretty good one to describe how it feels when you are trying to make those decisions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephanie, over to you. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I felt like just a lot resonated right now as I'm like thinking and my wheels are turning. But yeah, just a little bit on this Arleta farm behind me. This one is actually connected to my parents' property, but they weren't like the true owners for some period of time. So just to give you like an idea of what land access looked like there. So growing up in this neighborhood, where it is highly residential, and we're kind of on a busy street, not kind of, like it has become more busy because there's schools along the pathway. So then you have less access to, let's say, parking. But ideally, we would love if our neighbors came and walked through and walked by a lot more. But then you also think like in summers, not a lot of people are walking or vice versa. That plays a big role into what it looks like to be visited at our farms. Heat, just also knowing that we're there. We've been there for 6 years now, and we have just noticed like this upkick in people who are like, "Oh, I've lived here my whole life, and I had no idea you were here in this corner." We get confused for a garage sale sometimes and stuff like that. And we do have signage and a bunch of other things saying we're open, we're a farm, but it's just really communicating what you do, who you are, why you're here. And for a long time, what made it a little hard for us too was that we weren't selling the vegetables. They were all free. They're still to this day, everyone who visits gets up to 2 pounds of free produce harvested. So that model really gets questioned a lot, but that's what helps us share the story. So then it makes the bigger impact to keep our programs alive, which is what helps us with our revenue, which is get out and garden programs, to teach kids about gardening and food farm to table programming. Then we have our Reseda location. So that one, we were invited to share space with a nursery. So that was zoned as a nursery. It started off as Grandpa's Nursery many years ago before we even got there, and they would sell fruit trees. So on that property alone, they have about 6 pomegranate trees and like 3 avocado trees and a fig tree. So just thinking about like what that space looks like. So in Reseda, we have about, when we first started, we were planting on about 3,000 square feet because we shared it with another business that sold succulents. So in the front, we would grow food, and then Jacqueline, she would sell her succulents. She left last year, so then we overtook it, and now we have about 6,000 to 7,000 square feet that we're growing on, but also an uptake in our monthly rent. And in that space, it's like super busy. So parking actually makes a huge impact on it. Like people more like likely to want to park or find parking and walk really far. So those are some things that we have been like trying to figure out trying to figure out how to overcome those challenges, because it is also residential, but not a lot of people walk there. So more people walk in Arleta than they do in Reseda. It just feels very, it's urban. That's what it is. It's a lot of cars passing by. We're busy, busy, busy. So we're challenged to see like how can we get people excited to kind of slow down and come harvest with us and learn about their food and where it comes from. So some of the trade-offs, yeah, I would definitely say because we aren't operating as like at a farmer's markets, that's a trade-off for us because we have 2 locations. We haven't really gone to farmers markets and haven't looked into that because we know that's high capacity. But that's a trade-off because we want to build community in these spaces that we have access to, which is very hard to come by. But we were invited, or it just happened to be in my parents' backyard. So we really want to grow in those spaces, and that keeps you hyper local, and that's a trade-off, but we're willing to do it, and we've been doing it 6 years, so we're going to keep on going and seeing where that takes us, and really showing our community that we're here for the long run and for them. I would say for climate, as y'all know, those fires that hit are a great example in January, where we were closed for all of January pretty much, and that kept no harvesting. So like you lower your impact. Then we deal a lot with the heat waves in the San Fernando Valley. It could get up to like 115, 120, but it's direct piercing sun. So we've really had to navigate shade cloths, or when it's really windy and the shade cloths get taken out. So there's been a lot of that. And just figuring our water as well is always that conversation piece. Like, how can we be better with our water? How do we become more efficient in this space? We have leaks. Our water hoses are popping all the time, or we've had to go through so many of them. So that's a little bit about what goes on over here.
Did you feel like there was smoke damage to any of your produce during the fires while you were closed when you came back to it? Did you have to like take any plants out from any damage?
In this case, no, but in 2020, that did happen to us. So many ashes everywhere. We just had to strip everything.
Mm.
Um, and I just remember we have pictures and I wanted to show one, but it was just like so eerie, all
Mm.
like Jesse, you could barely see fog, or smog, I should say, and just all of the eggplants having to go into, at that point, we didn't have composting, so it just went into the green bin.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have you keep going a little bit on this too, Stephanie. A little bit of information about regulatory or zoning hurdles that you faced when you started your operation. And then, was the challenge more about like the rules themselves or about like navigating city systems? And then, what helped? Was it, allies that are elected officials or community pressure? Did you do a lot of marketing, storytelling to sort of bring attention to it? And then, yeah, some of that like the connection between those things. Was local policy an enabler, or was it a really big hurdle that you needed to hop over in order to start your space and to keep it moving?
Awesome. Yeah. So what was one of our challenges to begin with was figuring out what our relationship was going to look like with LADWP. So our municipal, I guess, departments here. And it was because in our LIDA, in this space, it was zoned so that you wouldn't be able to establish any permanent like housing or things like that. So figuring out, could we grow food in this space? So that was the first step. And who do we reach out to? So quickly we were able to, at the time I was working for a nonprofit, but I was like connected to LADWP, so I was able to get those answers. So we were able to grow food, although even though it wasn't like zoned for permanent housing, which was great. But that was one of the first ones, and it took a while because it was during 2020, so it just felt like every department was off, and we were getting those emails like out of office, out of office. But finally, I think it was after a year, we got the okay from LADWP. What I would say though is we're still kind of facing that hurdle or we still are facing the hurdle of the urban agriculture incentive zone, which LA County is supportive of, but it's so many applications and eligibility requirements. And as we're operating more as a nonprofit, I would say, than like as urban farmers, because we don't really sell or produce at the scale. That's what's been pretty confusing in those conversations that we're having right now. But our biggest advocates have been our supervisor, Lindsay Horvat, and we've been part of the LA Food Policy Council, and they have been a great resource to kind of tap us into who we need to be talking to, who will be our ally, and who will go have those larger conversations with us so that we can finally pass or apply and get that water zoning as agricultural space. So we're looking forward to that in 2027.
Perfect. Mo, I'm gonna pass it to you next.
Yeah, the biggest regulatory hurdle for Berkeley Basket, I think we're currently still going through it right now, is I had applied for a business license for the city of Berkeley, and they it was denied. And I think part of the reason why that was is because they don't have any idea what this is. Berkeley Basket, though my address is the one that is listed as the head of the business, um, we theoretically have four different addresses for this business for the farm. And so they're asking me, like, what exactly are you zoning? And so I'm working with kitchen table advisors. I have a business advisor through them. That is literally what our next meeting is going to be about. It's trying to figure out um, who and where do we go in the city of Berkeley, specifically, in the zoning departments to get someone out here to show them what the work that we're doing, and then to be able to apply for a license. Um, and so that's, yeah, navigating the city. We did again at one point have Sophie Hahn on, who was here. She has since moved out of the city, and so now I feel even more removed from those working in the city of Berkeley, but also being on the Urban Ag Policy Committee for CAF. I'm hoping to use that momentum to reintroduce myself to the local policies here, so that way I could better share this information with people who want to be an urban farmer in the city of Berkeley and beyond. Um, and then just like, honestly, I have definitely been a person, please don't do this, but I've definitely been a person who's just done things and then asked for forgiveness later, you know? So, which when you're doing that and working with regulatory bodies, that could come with fines, that could come with loss of income, because, you know, I could just be bullheaded and just go ahead and do a thing, and then you get a bill months later saying, hey, you weren't actually supposed to do it in that way. And so I, you know, as I've been navigating this business and understanding how to work within the city limits, they did come with hot touch points where I was like, oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. But still learning and hopefully leaning on organizations like CAF and Kitchen Table Advisors, I can be able to navigate it a little bit better.
Okay, thanks, Mo. Christian, you're up next.
Yeah, I would say that biggest regulatory hurdle is it's a kind of a tough one for us. You know, we're a little spoiled in the sense that we haven't had any real issues with that. We mostly sell here at our farm stands. It's our biggest, I would say 80% of our sales go through here. Most of it is just relationship building with our neighbors, making sure they're not, annoyed with us or, the parking situation that somebody mentioned right now, right? It's tight here. So, but yeah, I would say, an example maybe of one that's come to mind recently is we have a friend here in San Diego who bought some property and was able to, get a good deal on it through, several reasons. But one of the big ones was putting it a zone for land, right? Or ag, excuse me. So they were able to by doing that, but like in our community here, if I wanted to do that, it would bring down the value of the properties in my community, right? So I'd maybe be able to, you know, get its zoned for ag, but just my neighbors wouldn't be too happy with it, and I don't even know if it would actually work. So it's something that I guess the one of the more recent ones that have come to mind. But for the most part, we've been, pretty okay as far as regulatory issues. I mean, there's certain things we can do, obviously, on the property. I would say the maybe the regulatory person are our landlords, right? They allowing us not to build certain things, or they don't think it's aesthetically pleasing, and so that's where the relationship building comes in, and having to, navigate those spaces. I want chickens. I think a revenue generator here would be, I have a friend out in Ramona who has alpacas. I want a petting zoo here. They don't want that. They just, that's not what their vision is here for this place. So I guess that's an example maybe for me in our situation, some of our regulatory issues and navigating that and overcoming that is just, building the relationships. I know as we scale and we get bigger, we're probably going to run into more of those actual regulations with the city issues. But nothing too crazy right now. So I've been fortunate, I guess I should say.
Um, I'm gonna sort of go into the lightning round here in a second, but to start, Christian, if you could sort of continue on that a little bit and say, like, what has lagged behind the reality of urban farming? Like, if you could say, this is the number one thing that I need, like, every elected official or anyone who makes these rules and decisions to know, so that I can change this and like do something that's gonna just make this so much easier and sort of clear that playing field for growers. And obviously, particularly, each of our regions on this panel are very different. And so for San Diego, like, what would you say that's been lagging behind that you would like to overcome?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Really interesting question. Yeah, like if I had a representative here, or if I could, speak to all of them for, half an hour, do a podcast with them for a few hours or something. I don't know. It's a One of the things that I find funny is I wonder how many people are going to the grocery store that are our representatives or people in the community and buying organic stuff or thinking about those things, or buying organic products. And so in my mind, I wonder where's the disconnect where they don't think about where that's coming from. They see that, right? They're having it in their shopping cart, but like, where's the disconnect that they wouldn't want it close? And so, or close to where they are. And so, I guess, yeah, what I would do is hopefully encourage them to consider that in the policies that they are choosing to implement. And going back to what we were talking about, like if there's a new sprawling community that they're trying to develop, like trying to find ways to incorporate that, finding ways, giving business loans to small farmers or urban farmers that are looking to do this, and helping facilitate some of those, business plans. I think is something that at least some ideas that are in a seed baby stage that I go through my mind, I feel like could be important. I think for this to continue, right? To have more small scale farming, or even slightly bigger, right? I mean, small in comparison to the larger, mega fields, right? But that's, I guess, to answer your
Yeah.
question in a nutshell, relatively
Yeah, even
quickly.
like building in a community garden space. Like
Yeah,
where I
absolutely.
live,
Yeah.
this neighborhood was built like in the last 20, 30 years, and there's plenty of parks, but not like spaces for people to grow food. And so that was sort of an oversight of, community planners, and they should be taking into account when they're thinking about the design, not just the beautiful plants that they're planting in landscaping, but like the ability for people to have space to grow food if they don't
Yeah,
have like yards.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, especially like, I mean, so much of our, urban areas are now turning to, high rises. We're trying to fit as many people in as possible, and that's
Mhm.
totally, understandable in many ways. But yeah, how to, find creative ways, whether it's, like a park, right? We all agree that there should be a park for kids to play in, right? But like that comes from a place of value where people value that, right? And so like, how do we, I guess update our values in some ways, right? Like I think there's tweaks that we can make, little tweaks that, I think everybody is, for the most part, I'd like to think everybody's on the same page with. Obviously, developers and people, who need homes. Obviously, there's like some conflicting interests for sure. But I think for the most part, I think most of us, I'd like to think, agree that, having some place to grow food and parks and all these other things, nature areas are very important. So how do we find a way to fit that in?
Yeah, Stephanie, same question to you.
I like go into thinking about the way, are we able to streamline applications? Like, does there need to be like multiple applications after applications to really figure out? Like, I think it was Mo who was saying the same kind of sentiment that I am. It's like they don't even know how to categorize you, and they're giving you such a hard time. So I would say that something that would be really helpful for urban farmers in the city of Los Angeles would be as LADWP, because they really oversee, I think, like over 300,000 acres in LA County. Like they should be like streamlining that agricultural water rates for small nonprofits. Like there should be like this really
Mhm.
direct application that we can have as a resource right off the bat, versus us trying to figure out like how do we categorize ourselves, who do we talk to, and we're over here just like playing duck duck goose, and it's
Yeah. All right, you, Mo.
Wow, I think I've definitely spoke to a couple of uh, policy desires, needs for the city of Berkeley. But, and yeah, one lesson I learned the hard way is, just what I had mentioned before was um, not really understanding, having just like a preliminary understanding of what the zoning and licensing needs of my city are, and then having to pay fines just because I was unaware or didn't take the time to understand how my operation sits within all of the kind of legalese and permitting. So, just I would say it would be incredible if there was, and I'm sure there is, just a way if it's like, hey, do you want to start an urban farm in Alameda County or within the city of Berkeley? Here are the steps with which you can take to make sure that you're in compliance.
Mhm.
Um, because I do feel like without my business advisor, I wasn't able to find these things on my own. And when I went to go look for them, again, the language isn't urban farm. I think they do use some language around community gardens or just like school gardens, but like what does it mean when you are an LLC operating out of a backyard? Um, and why urban farming matters locally, I really do marinate on this. Quite a lot because there is a lot of feedback or complexity around urban farming and where do we fit into the larger narrative of feeding people when we're not in a rural space. Um, and just hearing a lot of urban farming cannot feed people on the scale that we need to. And I would also like to say that um, urban farming is important because it allows people to have access to the soil, to their farmer, to their food in a way that they may not have the capacity or the ability to go out to a farm that is, in the Central Valley or, in a more rural space. There are so many times where I have had people out to the farm and it's their first time farming. It's their first time putting their hands in the soil. It's their first time getting to talk to a farmer who looks like me. And so I feel like that is important because then we are inspiring the next round of farmers who may want to then, you know, take the ball and roll and go out into a rural space. So there's a question in the Q&A that was directed to me and Christian, and and it is talking about competition. And so I think that's part of it is that I do not want to be in competition with rural farmers. I don't want to be in competition with any farmer. We're all focused on the same goal, which is to feed the people, right? And so that's all going to look differently for everyone, but there are benefits to urban farming, to rural farming, to peri-urban farming, whatever farming. And so, how can we all be in community and connection with each other without having to put division in? There's already so much of that. So, I would like to build, how do we start to continue to build relationship with each other? Um, so, I'll leave it there for now, but just to go ahead and start chipping away at that question.
Yeah, that's perfect. This is a wonderful segue to go into the Q&A. There's just a few questions left on there. And yeah, if Christian, if you want to take that second, take the second part of this question too, that was asked about competition and let me see, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that I like to say here is like my goal isn't to, like today we have a guy who's only 25 minutes away. His name is Anthony, and he does sheep stuff, right? So he has kefir, he has cheese, he has all this stuff, and he brought his samples and everything, right? And I think my point in bringing him up is like I used to always say I'm not trying to replace a grocery store, right? I'm not like, hey, we're gonna freaking knock out the grocery store and you never have to go there again. I think we can all have our place. You have peanut butter aisle, right? There's like 1,000 different varieties of peanut butter, right? You can have, obviously there's a business aspect, right? If you're not doing good and your model's not working, like, you have to do something there, right? Stand out and all this stuff, right? But besides that, my goal isn't like going into it with the value of they need to get shut down. I think Alyssa's uncle actually does, what is it, like commodity crops. He does soy and corn out in Illinois, right? So I'm not like trying to say, hey, dude, like you can't exist. I think we can all coexist and we all inspire each other in different ways, right? There's things that I take, as much of it as might sound crazy sometimes, right? Like from Big Ag, there's things that you can, the lean farm. Maybe many of you guys have heard that, right? But the idea of like, there's things that we can take from other people and their learned experiences, right? And apply it to us in all avenues, right? And so I think if we can share that and have that mindset, I think I'd like to think maybe it's idealistic, right? But that's hopefully something that will get us farther. So I'm not trying to replace farmers, but we can inspire each other hopefully. And then next thing you know, Alyssa's uncle might want to start growing. We're trying to get him right now to maybe transition over to some blue organic heirloom corn. So we'll see how that goes. But the idea of learning from each other, I think, is really important. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I would say too, with the peer-to-peer learning piece of this question too, farming is difficult, and one of the biggest things to get out of it that's beautiful is the community. And so it's not just the community in which you're growing your food for, it's also the community of other people who are doing the same thing and understand. And so there's such a big opportunity to learn from each other. Like Christian was saying, like we are, I think that that's something I love about being in this urban farming community in California, is how open people are to talk about their challenges and their successes, and to say very frankly, like, this is my, financial situation with this, and this is how maybe I changed that. And these are the programs I accessed that did or didn't work for me. And that is, I think, the biggest part of what makes urban agriculture so unique, is that we're really able to bring that community together, because here's, 3 different farmers from across the state. My farming experience was in New York City, and it was the same sort of, vibe out there. Like, people were on a listserv, like, I got this problem with my soil, come out and help me, or come to these community events. And so it is really about building community, and that's such a beautiful thing about this. Yeah, and I think we have just a couple more questions and just about a minute left. So I'm gonna answer this question live. Ricardo asks, what would be some challenges for a small company versus a bigger corporation that you face when you started speaking from a small farmer perspective? Does anybody want to take that?
I mean, sure. Just at its most basic, there's like a scale, right? You can buy things at scale when you're a giant corporation, right? Whether it's seeds, whether it's bags, salad bags, right? All that stuff. There definitely is benefits, I guess, to being a giant corporation, right? So at its most basic, I think that's a small example. Compost, right? All that stuff is it can get expensive. So in a quick nutshell, simple answer, that's a small example of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. It is 12:45. I want to wrap up, and just want to, if you could all pop your email addresses in there. I had it on the next slide, but just want you all to share your emails. So if people have questions for individual panelists, to reach out to us. And let me get this on.
Yeah, and as a reminder, we can send a follow-up email to everyone who registered for this session. In order to follow up. So thank you again, everyone. Keely, thank you so much for putting this together. Amazing panel. Stephanie, Mo, and Christian, we appreciate you joining us at the 2026 California Small Farm Conference. I'm going to start playing this video now, and we have many, many more workshops to come, so we hope to see you around.
Yes.
See you.
Please come to more. Thank you all. Your best.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys. Nice to meet you. We're talking.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Have a great day, everyone.